Hello, this is Arturelia Anime Room Reviews. I'm Arturo, and today I'll be reviewing Black Blood Brothers was, an interesting take in vampires. And I watched it, but when I was done with it, it kind of had this feeling of like, it started off really good, but by the end of it all, it just leaves it all hanging out, and the question is, will there ever be anything else to fill in all this sort of stuff? And the reason why I have this feeling about it, well, I will explain in this review. And is it any good? Is it worth watching? Let's go. Now the story starts us off 10 years prior to the main event of the story. During a war called the Hong Kong Crusade, there's chaos that happens, and the good guy and the bad guy, they fight. Then 10 years after that, our main character, Jiro, and his brother are on a ship heading to a safe zone for vampires until it's attacked by this organization hunting vampires, or, they have their reasons. And soon end up on a beach where a woman, Mimiko, who helps them out. And thus the story begins with these three characters. Though it really focuses on these so-called vampires that are different from other vampires, but there's something wrong with them. It's almost like a virus that spreads through the vampires. They seem to go a little crazy, and it causes chaos, which is why the main character has to be thrown into the situation that happened 10 years prior. So every character in this save zone have to team up to stop this chaos from spreading. The story was interesting, with groups of bad guys and good guys here and there, along with vampires who just want to live a good life. Have a nice safe zone just so they can live separately from the humans. Though for Jiro's backstory, through the course of the show we get thrown back and forth between this girl that he loved and also when he turned into a vampire, but they mix it up through several episodes. So in a sense, it's all jumbled up, like it doesn't really match, and I think in a sense you kind of have to determine in the timeline when certain things happened in his past. The opening was okay, the music wasn't my favorite, but the music in the show did have some good music. The animation and art style is really nice. I did really like the art style. And it's a decade old, but really good, even to this day. Now for the characters, Jiro, first a human in the past, now a vampire. He watches over his little brother, though he usually tries to steer clear from trouble. He does get thrown into the situation again, and he can't escape it. But he feels like most of the troubles that happen is just because wherever he goes, trouble happens. For his fighting skills, he is good with a sword that he carries around almost all the time, and also his powers. He's more serious, but he can have some funny moments when it comes to Mimiko or Kotaro, his brother, doing some things making him mad, or like he doesn't really want to do something that they want. Kotaro is his younger brother, and he sometimes just wanders off without his brother's permission. He's cheerful, and he loves his brother, and he cares for Mimiko, and yes, he gets punished by his bro if he doesn't listen, and it's like probably the worst punishment that he gets, but since he's a vampire, he can handle it. But he also has courage. Mimiko is a compromiser which works for the company and deals with the relationship between the vampires and the humans. She has the courage to help Jiro. And when it comes to certain problems, she's does her best to fix things, but usually there's a lot of chaos and she gets thrown into it Sometimes she gets irritated with Jiro in different circumstances. And they argue a little bit, but she cares for him and she cares for his little brother. And she wants to help them out just so they can stay in the safe zone. Most of the time she's tagging along with them during the show. Cassandra is the main villain of the story. She is the reason for most of the problems. Even what happened, I think, 10 years prior. Though through the show, she's trying to just cause chaos in the safe zone. But her reason for doing it, well, I don't know how to really say it. I mean, she's just your typical bad guy. I mean, she does have her backstories with Jiro and his love interest and what she was doing back then and what caused her to maybe do these certain things. But I don't know, there's not really a lot about her. But I guess you could say at least what they've mentioned, there is a spoiler here just to let you know. But she's like a reincarnation of someone else, but she's a vampire. Her motives for wanting to spread this thing, I mean, she's part of this old vampire group or family. Zellman, I will say he was an interesting character. I mean, he would probably be considered an anti-hero because he would probably do things that wouldn't be good, but he also works for the company that runs the safe zone. I don't know, he's sinister, but there's something about him that was just interesting. He does help out Jiro's younger brother. But he also looks bad, but he does things that can help out the good guys. He's soft-spoken, calm, and yeah, he was actually just cool. There are so many other characters in this show, from different bad guys to good guys. I'm not going to go into them all because it would just take forever. Okay, so for my enjoyment, I will say this. I did enjoy it when I was watching it, but the only problem is that it ended with a cliffhanger, and I don't even know if we'll ever get another season. And since it ended in a cliffhanger, which is like there could be more to the story. I mean, and when it ended that way, it's not a show that I would come back to or want to buy just because. The sad part is that we probably will never get another season. Even though I've looked into it and I've heard that possibly there might be, but I don't know if it's really going to happen. So yes, I mean, the ending just affected kind of how I felt about it. I mean, the fact of me wanting to rewatch it again, I don't know if I will. It did have good, interesting characters, and I did like watching these characters go through different situations, and the company, and the vampire zone, and all this and that, but it only has 12 episodes, and after it was done, it was like, well, okay, there's nothing else. We're left to this conclusion, like there's open. It's like an open ending, but just cliffhanger. It's not a bad cliffhanger, but it's an open ending that probably will never get resolved, and that's disappointing.
Wake the hell up!
Black Blood Brothers was an interesting anime, but it did suffer with that cliffhanger open ending. That's the sad part about this anime. It was good. Don't get me wrong, it was good. And it was entertaining with the characters, but since it only has 12 episodes and it ends like that, and I don't even know if there'll be another season, then I'm just gonna have to give it a 7 out of 10. It's good, but it's not something I'm gonna come back to watch again. It had interesting characters. It will keep you coming back for these characters. I do like the vampire stuff and all that. There are some a little bit of supernatural, kind of magical stuff in this show too, and it did make it interesting, but in Days End it just won't be anything I would come back to just because of how it ended. Now, if there was a season 2, I would probably rate this a little higher if there ever was a season 2. I highly doubt there will ever be another season of this, so that's the disappointing part. For my recommendations, I will obviously point to different anime series, some that have to do with vampires. I haven't seen all of them. I've seen a couple. Let's see. Well, there's Vampire Knight. I have not watched that as of yet of this review, but I may have by the time you've watched this. I don't know. I think my favorite vampire story would have to be the Helsing series. As for any other vampire stories, I'm not really sure if I can think of anything else. There's also Vampire D, I think, if that's how I'm saying it. So yeah, that's all I can think of for now. Well, this is Arturelia Anime Room Reviews signing off.